Hello, welcome back to Recovery Demystified. My name is Early. I'm so happy to have y'all here today. If you are looking for more non-religious recovery resources, guess what? I got them. A quick little announcement, or call in rather. I am looking for more guests to interview on this podcast. I've gone through the laundry list of all of my willing participants of friends, and now I'm just looking to branch out and meet more people and get more stories. And if you're wondering, like, oh, is my story good enough? Is it whatever? Like, if you don't have some crazy rock star story, like, it doesn't matter. I'm just looking for anyone who has had any kind of experience with struggling with substances, alcohol, addiction of any kind, any gray area, things on that whole spectrum. If you've had an experience with substances, addiction, anything of that nature, I want to hear your story. Everybody's story is important, but a lot of what I hear is people who have had like really extreme issues with addiction and then have become completely abstinent. That's my experience too, honestly. And I'm super open to interviewing people that have had that experience, but I'm also interested in bringing to light the stories of people who are somewhere in the gray area, people who are not raw dogging life after an extreme addiction, people who maybe return to moderate use, people who are California sober, people who are still in their addiction and in the questioning phase, people who quit before it got bad, just anyone with any experience. The doors are wide open. If you've got a story, I want to hear it. I want to bring our stories out into the light, destigmatize our experiences with substance use, with drugs, with addiction, and just tell the stories of folks that need to be heard. So if you have a story and you want to tell it, just send me an email, info@recoverydemystified.com. I'll put it in the description because I know I picked a word that was really obnoxiously hard to spell. But yeah, holler at me. And today on the podcast, what I'm here to do is talk about my June reading and podcast list for 2025. Personally, in my recovery, I found so much education, healing, and resources through books and podcasts. And the cool thing about it is that there's new ones coming out all the time. And for me, it's not just the quit lit genre. There's other books that just have really helped me grow and heal in my recovery. And I just want to filter through everything that's out there and just tell you exactly what helped me and what works for me and things that I think are really awesome. So without further ado, here is my June reading and podcast list for 2025. First on there is a book that I just read recently called Dry Humping, A Guide to Dating, Relationship, and Hooking Up Without the Booze by Tawny, Lara. And she is a queer person of color, and I loved finding this book because I feel like queer folks and people of color need their voices uplifted in society because a lot of times our perspectives are repressed in, cis, hetero, patriarchal, white supremacist world. To me, that's obvious, but I just feel like it needs to be said. And anyway, her book I found to be like super healing because I haven't done like a huge amount of dating out in the sober world. Honestly, personally, I've never dated someone who's sober. Like, I've been sober and dated, but in my life personally, like, that's not a deal breaker for me. But her book was so great. It went into like, first off, like dating yourself, like getting to know yourself better, treating yourself well, learning things about yourself. She touches on issues of all different people on the sexuality spectrum. She doesn't leave the asexual folks out of it, which I think is like really sweet of her because a lot of times those folks get invisibilized. She brings up issues that are specific to neurodivergent people, which I love. Obviously, I talk all the time about how I'm autistic and I have whatever different priorities, desires, needs than everyone else. So being seen by another queer person and like not invisibilized was awesome in reading this book. She's a sex columnist, so it's like she knows how to talk about this stuff in a way that's like frank and clear and honest without like, being too weird. she just kind of nails it with that. And she talks a lot about consent, which is really important. How when people are using or fucked up, that it's like basically impossible to give or receive consent under those circumstances. So I love that she talks a lot about that. That is something I've had a journey with myself personally. So I love being able to read and get more resources on that. She has like a whole section about handling like trauma and PTSD, which I love. And she touches on dating yourself and then beginning to branch out and dating other people and then like negotiating when the relationship gets serious. She touches on a whole bunch of stuff. It's super inclusive. It's really easy to read. I read it in just a few hours. Ton of like wonderful resources in there. And that is a book that I would highly recommend to anyone that is trying to figure out how to date sober for the first time. Alcohol is so freaking wrapped up in every part of our culture because the alcohol industrial complex likes to tell us that we need to drink to like socialize and have fun. And it is especially wrapped up in dating and sex because alcohol masks our natural inhibition. So for a lot of people, they see it as liquid courage when really it's just liquid inhibition masking. And our inhibitions are actually really important. They help us to stay safe. So in an alcohol-soaked culture, a lot of times people are like, oh, what do we do on our first date? Go out for drinks, right? Take the edge off type of thing. But she has all these lists and brainstorming ideas of all different ways to feel comfortable on a first date, different first date ideas besides going out and getting a drink. And anyway, the book it's wonderful, and I would recommend it to anyone who's getting out in the dating world again and trying to figure out how the heck you do it without drinking. So thank you, Tawny Lara, for writing this book. Next on my list, I have a book called Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. And Devon is both trans and autistic, and y'all know that I love reading books by other queer people and other neurodivergent people because it takes so much freaking work sometimes to parse through and have to explain to neurotypical people or to like straight like cishet people the complexity of the experience of what it is like to live in this body, in this world that's like not designed or meant for queer neurodivergent people. So whenever I'm like, oh my God, yes, Dr. Devon Price, I love you. Like the first book I read by him was Unmasking Autism. And it was so inspirational. And I've gone and taken steps in my life to unmask since then. And I've just experienced like so much less stress and so much relief. And I love him for that. But the book that I want to tell y'all about today is called Laziness Does Not Exist. And obviously the title is meant to be like push your buttons and be a little bit controversial. And I mean, I bought it just based on that I knew the author and that I just found the title to be interesting. Honestly, I thought it was going to be about ADHD, and I was trying to understand my partner's ADHD better at the time. And as it turns out, it's really just about listening to your body and learning about burnout and stress and how that manifests in our life and deconstructing the capitalist notion that our achievements and the amount that we like work and grind is equal to our value as human beings. And obviously that's fucking hardcore bullshit. Work does not equal value. You are valuable simply because you exist and you're here. You know, you're already whole. You're already wonderful and beautiful and powerful. Like, you don't need to be like out there fucking achieving and whatever, accomplishing goals and working fucking 70 hours a week is not a fucking virtue. You know what I mean? Like, some of us do have to work that much to survive or take care of the family or whatever the fuck. But simply being like, oh, I'm working so hard, that is not what gives us value. And I fucking love this book for breaking it down. He talks about times that he had been so sick that he was stuck in his house and unable to leave or work or do anything for a really long time. And then he was able to connect chronic illness issues with being stressed and overworked. And I have this really wonderful, smart friend who, I don't know, like a year or two ago said to me, you have got to start listening to your body. It is divine. And I was like, oh my God, what do you mean? Like, I am listening to my body. You know, I do yoga and I do somatic healing and blah, blah. But I was inspired by that. And through books like this, over the past while, learning to actually listen to my body and respect myself and listen to when I'm tired, truly, and respect that. as like my body's intelligent way of messaging me to let me know that my needs aren't being met and that I need rest. It's revolutionized my life, and thank you to that wonderful friend for giving me this great advice of listening to my body, because it is divine. Here's just like a few of the chapter titles in this book if it inspires you at all. You deserve to work less. Your achievements are not your worth. You don't have to be an expert in everything. Your relationships should not leave you exhausted. Fucking A. Shrugging off society's shoulds. And compassion kills the laziness lie. This book, it deconstructs a lot of the toxic ideas that were taught about productivity. It gives you a permission slip to just fucking take care of yourself and be a human and engage in things that fill you up and replenish you and make you feel good about life, instead of just working yourself to the bone and being another fucking cog in the capitalist machine. And if you're wondering early, this book isn't about recovery. Why are you talking about it on the Recovery Podcast? If you haven't heard me say this a million times over, everything is freaking connected. Nothing exists in a vacuum, and it's not just like you stop using substances and that's it. Everything in our lives, in our minds, our bodies, our spirits is all connected in a big web, and then we're all connected to each other, man. A book about reducing stress in your life, taking care of yourself more, and confronting fucking toxic societal concepts like workaholism. I think that directly correlates to our recovery, because guess what? If you got an addiction, what do you do when you're stressed? You reach for that thing you're addicted to, right? What do you do if you're overworked? What do you do if you're, feeling pressured by society's shoulds? You freaking reach for whatever you're addicted to, So like reducing that stress, reducing that pressure, reducing that freaking workaholism ass bullshit, deconstructing it, cleaning out house. That is what recovery is made out of. Getting your life back, learning how to listen to your body, because it is divine. That is what recovery is. That is the core and the fucking essence of it to me. And here's another thing about it. Sometimes people are like, oh, I feel so selfish when I take time for myself. Like, I feel guilty. Like, I should be, doing this thing for this other person. Or like, I shouldn't just be laying around, or like, whatever, doing something that's like pleasant or like lazy or relaxing or whatever. A lot of people feel guilty when they do that, and that is normal because society has like programmed us to feel that way. However, I invite you to take a completely different viewpoint on it, which is when you're taking care of yourself, it is the opposite of selfish. It is the opposite of something that should make you feel guilty, because when you're taking care of yourself, guess what? You can show up better in the world for everyone else. When you're burned out to shit and you're all pissed off and stressed out, how are you showing up in the world for your community? Not as your best self. So the more you're able to turn inwards, take care of yourself, rest, it's not fucking selfish, because then you can turn back out towards your loved ones and your community with your best self. So I invite you to like try on that perspective for size and see how it suits you, because we're all connected. I'm going to say that so many times. You could, if I was a pull string doll, that would be one of the sentences that I say. Anyway, Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. Check it out. And the third book on my list is a book called Girl Walks Out of a Bar by Lisa Smith. This one we got some author donations of for a free book program, which was so exciting. But this book is a addiction memoir style book. And it is one of the most well-written ones that I have read. Honestly, I'm like, I don't remember what Lisa Smith's background was. A lawyer or something? I think she worked for like a law firm in that book, but not as a writer. And I'm like, girl, is this ghostwritten, or did you just do this? Because it is gripping. Like you open the book, the first page is like, it's her in the depths, like about to go into rehab for the first time. And then it's like the story of being in the hospital, which is almost never a thrill. And then the story of it goes back and forth where it's like, okay, she's like in a recovery. There's parts of it that are in a recovery. There's so much of it that just like illustrates the downfall of her addiction. And the interesting thing about addiction, I mean, there's so much that's interesting about it, obviously, but one of the interesting things about addiction is like, what was the moment you became addicted? There wasn't a moment. It was a slide. And for most people, it's like all of a sudden you look around and you're like, shit, fuck, how did it get like this? You're stuck before you know it. And her book illustrates that really, really well. And it's interesting also reading books by rich people because I don't know any rich people. I'm so disconnected from what that lifestyle and that experience is like. But it's interesting to see people like you can't buy your way out of it, you know, like that old adage, like money can't buy happiness or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, kind of. Sometimes I'm like, rich people can have whatever the fuck they want, but guess what? They can't. You can't rich your way out of an addiction. But it's funny too reading it because it's like homegirl she had like a Coke delivery guy and she was rich from her job, so she could like have as much fucking Coke as she wanted delivered to her apartment. I'm just like, damn. Like, it's almost kind of worse when you're rich and you can have whatever you want because that is fucking scary and deadly. Like, I mean, not having any money never kept me from not getting fucked up, but it certainly is like prohibitive when it comes to the fact that you can't, have just like fucking 8 balls delivered to your apartment at the fucking drop of a hat. Like, that is so chaotic, honestly. Some of her stories also, gosh, like, it was like fucking visceral reading this book. Her writing style, it brought me back. Like, sometimes, like, I love reading these addiction memoirs because it's destigmatizing and it's relatable, but sometimes the way people write, I'm like, oh my God, I'm reliving that feeling of waking up in the morning or in the middle of the night at fucking 3 a.m. and just being so mentally twisted and sad and scared and withdrawing and sick that I would just walk back to the kitchen and drink whatever alcohol was there just to be able to sleep again for however long it lasts. And she was at that stage and she'd be like just fucking chugging wine or whatever and then snorting Coke at whatever time of day just to stave off the withdrawals. And I was like, man, how she writes it, like, you feel it. It is a good book any way you cut it. And she now is in long-term recovery and started this podcast, which let's switch over to the podcast recommendation version of this, the podcast recommendations section of this podcast episode. Isn't it funny that this is a podcast about podcasts? How metaphysical. But anyway, so Lisa Smith, who wrote Girl Walks Out of a Bar, the book I was just talking about, and then also Tawny Lara, who wrote the first book I talked about, Dry Humping, they have a podcast together, which is how I actually found both of their books. The podcast is called Recovery Rocks, and I love it because it's just like, you know, 2 gals chit-chatting, and they have rad politics, and they're like not afraid to get into issues. They, you know, connect all different things across the spectrum. Like, they'll have an episode talking about queerness, because like I said, Tawny Lara is queer, and they talk about like harm reduction. They just talk about how, you know, the stress of the political atmosphere can like affect our recoveries. It's just 2 gals talking, you know. It's really nice to listen to. And y'all know I be complaining about sound quality, which is the only thing that I don't like about their podcast. You can tell they're just sitting in front of their computers, and maybe one has a good microphone and the other one's just talking. So sometimes it's kind of like squawky and hard to listen to, but I really like their personalities. I really like their perspectives. I like the variety of topics that they bring up. And sometimes it just feels nice to just listen to 2 gals talking. So I definitely recommend Recovery Rocks with Tawny Lara and Lisa Smith. And then the other podcast that I have on here today is called Chasing Heroine, but it's like heroin with an E at the end, like hero and heroine. Chasing Heroine by Jeanine Coulter. and she does an interview style podcast, but it's different than most of the interview style podcasts. She is a 12-stepper, but she's one of the open-minded 12-steppers that's like, she's excited about doing 12 steps, but she acknowledges the fact that other people can recover other ways. I am planning on doing a whole podcast about like my experience with AA and 12-step and the things that bother me and the things that I liked. But one of the things that really bothers me is when you're in 12-step, they're like, this is the only way. You have to do it exactly this way. This is the only way to get sober or off drugs. And if you don't do this, you're going to die. And every other way is wrong. And that's kind of like the old school way of looking at it. But a lot of people still think like that. But I really love that Jeanine Coulter is open-minded, and she's like, loves the way she does recovery, but then she also is like, oh yes, obviously like people are different from each other and we can recover all different kind of ways. So I love her for that. She is one of the only podcast hosts that is interviewing people who were on drugs instead of just people who had alcohol addictions. So it's great because I feel like that experience and that perspective is one that I don't hear often enough. And I did an episode on here about inhalants, and I was like, I have literally never heard anyone talk about huffing shit on a podcast. But recently on her podcast, someone was talking about huffing duster, and I was like, fucking A, thank you. Because I'm like, damn, like, I know I'm not the only one that was huffing a bunch of shit. So she has, people that were like addicted to all kinds of drugs, IV drug users, and all sorts of people that I don't hear enough perspectives and experiences of, and people that like honestly society just casts aside as like the IV drug user in society's eye is the most degenerate of all of us or something. And that is not how I feel. If you use IV drugs, guess what? I fucking love you. And if you want to quit, I love you. And if you don't want to quit, I love you. I think that you deserve life, love, fucking happiness, and whatever your heart desires. You're a whole and complete person if you use IV drugs. But society is out here like painting these people as the scum of the earth or like hopeless or not worthy of fucking even Narcan at times. So I think that it is wonderful that Jeanine is having these people on, explaining their experience of recovery, which is like never linear. It's like always full of attempts at abstinence, attempts at sobriety, going back out, the complexity of the experience with that, rehabs, institutionalization, psych meds. It's people with some really, really, honestly, like sometimes the stories are just straight up entertaining. She also doesn't have a time cap on it, which I love. Like I used to think like, oh, a recovery podcast should be 45 minutes or whatever. And that's how I started doing mine. And now after listening to hers and also just like learning that different people's stories take a different amount of time to tell, I'm like, a recovery podcast is just however long it is. There's no reason for it to be 45 minutes or an hour or whatever. Like, and hers go on for a long time sometimes. Sometimes it's in 2 whole sections of 2 hours each. Yeah, it's just really beautiful to hear all different kind of people's perspective. Drug users that end up getting off drugs and are just fucking going about their lives doing whatever it is they chose to do after that. So thank you, Jeanine, for putting out this podcast. It is stellar. Obviously, y'all know I hate ads. You do gotta skip through some ads on there, which I find annoying, but fucking capitalism, everybody's gotta get money wherever they can get it. And if you're monetizing your podcast, fuck yeah. But it's annoying and you gotta skip through that shit. And anyway, if y'all have more podcast recommendations, I'm in the trenches learning about new ones, but I'm kind of dried up on all the old ones that I've been listening to for years. Send me podcast recommendations, stuff that is off the beaten path, and I'm super stoked to continue to research and listen to more podcasts and bring y'all more recovery resources. I'm so glad to speak with y'all today. I hope some of these resources are helpful to you. Books and podcasts saved my life. And Recovery Demystified has a free book program. So if one of these books sounds good to you, or a different book that I haven't even mentioned, if you want a free book, send me an email. info@recoverydemystified.com, and I'm happy to buy that book for you. And if you are struggling today, I want you to know I love you. You can do it. You can make whatever goals you set for yourself in your life. Like, no one is too far gone. And I know what it feels like to be in that hard place. And if I could reach out and give you a hug and buy you a burrito, I would do that. If you're local, holler at me. Come to one of our support groups at Day by Day Healing, 6 p.m. on Mondays. And if you need support in any other way, holler at me in the email. I got you. All right, my dears. I love you so much. May you be happy and free. Recovery Demystified is produced and edited by me, Early Brunner. Stevie Petet made our logo. Our social media manager is Kaylee Bausch. Logan Bragg wrote our beautiful theme music. We are entirely supported by donations as a 501c3 nonprofit. Your tax-deductible donations can be made to our Venmo or to our PayPal at Recovery Demystified. May you be happy and free, dear listener.